You are listening to Passing Shots with Pete Ziebron on the Pro 10 Radio Network, a production of Pro 10 Global Sports. Enjoy the show.
And good evening. Welcome to Passing Shots on the Pro 10 Radio Network. Pete with ATP journalist in Los Angeles. Good evening, Barry.
Good evening, Peter. How you doing? Sorry, I lost you there a second. Whoops, kind of tough connection with you. Peter, can you hear me?
Hi, good evening, Barry.
There you go. I lost you there a second.
Yeah, we had a bad connection there. Sorry about that. Listeners, you can call us at 347-637-1197. And Barry, you were just in New York City at the U.S. Open for a few days. You were at a book signing exhibit with your book with Bobby Blair, Hiding Inside the Baseline. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your time in New York, particularly the book signing?
Certainly. Yeah, it was a very, very exciting trip. My client Bobby, who actually a year ago we all met in New York City last year and announced that they had a big press conference and announced that we had agreed to write the book, and then we kind of grinded it out over the last 12 months, and we reached publication, I believe, in March. And we were kind of setting our sights towards a big rollout here, this U.S. Open. And so on Friday the 29th at 3 o'clock, we set up shop. They had a nice little bookstore there at the U.S. Open, and they have a nice little book signing. And so we had Billie Jean King, who was actually Bobby used to work for at World Team Tennis, come out and support us, and Nick Bollettieri, and Sven Gronfeld, Maria Sharapova's coach. He was actually a college friend of Bobby's from 25 years ago. And a couple other people were supposed to try to get out there, but they got caught up in the booth. Patrick McEnroe and LZ Granderson were unfortunately doing matches at the time. But, yeah, it was a really wonderful event. When Billie Jean King walks on the grounds there, she is tennis royalty, and she sat at the table with us and signed books for about half an hour, and we had a really, really wonderful turnout. It was a beautiful day, and yeah, it couldn't have worked out much better, to be honest with you.
No, that's nice. Those are some big time names, and obviously the Billie Jean King National Tennis Center, it doesn't get any bigger than that. And just talk. I mean, obviously people were buying the book. Was there a lot of interaction with Billie Jean and Sven and the fans there?
Yeah, it was really neat. You know, there was they kind of set up a really nice table for us there. So basically, it was Billie Jean, Bobby in the middle, and then Nick, and then Sven and I were at the end. And it was just probably a line, I would say, a good couple hundred people long, and
wow.
People buying books, and everyone's just, shaking hands and getting a few words in, and there were camera crews. Bobby hired a camera crew to come up with him to document the whole thing, and then I think the ESPN crew was there, and then the U.S. Open had their own crew there and stuff. So there's just an awful lot of, photo ops, and, things were happening pretty fast. And, to be quite honest, when the cameras come out, I kind of I just go the other direction and let Nick and those guys are kind of magnets for the camera, so I'll just let them have the moment. But, they got, Billie Jean said some really, really nice things about Bobby, as did Nick did too, and that was really, really touching stuff. And, it was an important event. Billie Jean really, really stepped up, and then, Nick got even emotional on tape, because Bobby was like the son he never had kind of thing. And so it was just a really, really profound event, and, an awful lot of hard work went into writing this, for Bobby to, living it and coming out as he did, and all the angst around that. And, they just couldn't have been more supportive. All of his friends and partners were there. My girlfriend was there. It was just a really wonderful little group of people, there to celebrate a big day for him. So it couldn't have worked out much better. Sold a bunch of books, which was nice. And, it's the beginning of an opportunity for him to really kind of there's a path for him to take here in tennis that I don't think anyone really has done that yet, in the sense of trying to encourage tolerance and acceptance in the sports world. You know, there's still, it's kind of one of the last frontiers of homophobia in our society, and it's an area that I think he's going to walk towards and try to make a difference for that next generation of kids coming up in, you know, high school and college who were going through a similar experience that he was. So all in all, it was a really wonderful experience, and that was the first one. And we had another book signing Saturday in Manhattan at a nice little studio there. That worked out really, really well too. Had a nice turnout for that, and yeah, you know, it went real quickly. It was great. It was a great couple of days, and you know, it was just really, really neat place to showcase our work.
Well, yeah, it doesn't get any bigger than New York City, especially with the names that you had in the tennis world. And Barry, this is your second book. You were kind enough to send me a copy of your first book. We're going to do a show about that, but also you're going to have a third book coming up, and we're going to talk a little bit about that a little later on in the show. But in addition to your big signing on Friday, obviously you had a chance to check out some action on the grounds of the U.S. National Tennis Center, and any matches in particular that you were able to take in, and your thoughts and observations from what you were able to see.
Yes, absolutely. You know, that's my second year in a row being back there, and you know, I've something about watching professional tennis, and there's just all these different levels that you can, how close you can actually get to the action. And I tell you, at the professional level, there's just absolutely no substitute for being able to be at court level, you know, being right by the action when these guys are playing, even going up, you know, 15, 20 feet up, you know, standing up in the front row, you're just not at the court level. So I was able to get out in the backcourt and watch Goffin play Sousa in a match. Sousa was actually seated at 32, and Goffin was just fantastic. I mean, I have to be honest. I mean, it was just some of the great, both guys were just on fire. It was some of the greatest moving and ball striking, and I really thought he would have a great chance to make a difference, or, you know, make a little run in the tournament, and he came up a little short with Dimitrov. But that, I got to watch Tim play Gulbis up front. They had a tough five-setter. Gulbis is just an enigma. I don't think he's ever going to break into the top 10 ever. Right? That forehand is just a disaster, and on a faster surface, it just doesn't hold up. He doesn't have, it's just never ever going to be the shot he needs to be to hang with the big boys, you know, day in and day out. And other than that, I saw Lopez up close. I saw quite a few. Tim was outstanding. He looked really, really good. But you can just tell, you know, it's interesting. You can just see the differences. You know, I think Tim on television looked like a bigger guy than he is. He's really not that big a guy. And he doesn't serve all that hard. And tonight, Berdych, you know, really kind of, you know, asserted his will on him pretty significantly. Yeah, he just did. There's just that difference in that athleticism that you start to see. You know, I went on the practice court and was watching Tsonga and Monfils practice, and you know, these guys are just different athletes than the other guys. You know, you're looking, they're just in a whole different class of athleticism. You know, so when you're up against that kind of stuff, you know, just to see that up close like that is really, it's just really amazing to see how talented these guys are. Yeah, other than that, I mean, it's just, you know, lost a lot of doubles, a lot of the juniors out there, just everyone's crushing the ball and looking good, and and then we got a chance to watch the Sharapova-Wozniacki match from start to finish. That was quite exciting. Yeah, Wozniacki played very, very well. Maria was quite loud. Got to be honest. It's amazing how that crowd has really turned on her. That New York crowd was not for her. They were very pro Wozniacki. Yeah, and it seems to be the kind of a thread going through the tennis community. I think they're kind of done with her. They really are tired of the Maria shriek fest, so to speak, that she makes us endure to watch her. But yeah, I have to be honest. We saw a little bit of the Federer Granollers match, and before it got rained out. It was real windy out there. I think he got a nice break there when the rain came. But all in all, you know, just a couple days, it was fantastic. You know, it's always just fun to get at court level and watch that level of athleticism.
Nice, and you mentioned one of the matches in particular I wanted to ask you a little bit more about, and interesting, the Dominic Thiem Ernest Gulbis match. Gulbis had a 2-0 lead, and then, you know, near the end, it looked like his body was failing him. Wanted to get your thoughts on what exactly you saw there, because he was steamrolling Thiem, and then Dominic came back and obviously got the job done, but Gulbis could barely stand near the end there.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there. You know, we left before the fifth set actually began, I'm not sure. Someone said he got hurt, and but then when I actually saw the end of it on television, it looked like he was either he looked like he was cramping. So there was a fair amount of cramping going on back there, and which has surprised me too, because it wasn't. Those days were not that warm. It was not that hot when we were there. I mean, it's been hot the last couple of days, but the first week there's quite a few guys going down and really struggling with their conditioning. So it's a kind of an odd dynamic there. But yeah, he just didn't, he hasn't looked good all summer. I mean, he just hasn't had a good result at all. And, he had a wonderful French, and it's just more of a testament. We've talked about this a lot, but it just, the consistency that it takes to be an elite professional tennis player. You're not allowed to have a bad summer. Gulbis just basically nailed it in this summer, and, and whereas these other guys just, week in, week out, just very rarely have the poor results, and you can just see the different levels of class, and not that these guys can't, if the top guys are down a little bit, they're vulnerable, but, when they're on their game, like the Federer's been and Djokovic have been, it's just a really unique level of athleticism that these guys operate at. And you can really see the difference even on the rank and file guys. They're just that much better than them.
Good point. I saw part of the Gulbis Steve Johnson match where Johnson won in Cincinnati, and I mean that's sort of, in my opinion, an unacceptable result for Gulbis. Somebody who talked about wanting to be number one on his route to the semis at the French, and then I think he's won 4 matches, if that, since the French. And I wanted to get one other thought on that Gulbis team match, Barry. Obviously, Dominic Thiem, probably, obviously up and coming, nice quarterfinal result at the U.S. Open. Still not on the American radar. The tennis aficionados certainly know who he is, but I was really surprised when I saw the order of play that match. Gulbis team was on court number 11. What's the capacity for that court? I was shocked to see that.
It's not big. No, it's not big at all. I walked literally right up to court level on the fence and was able to watch these guys, from 15 feet away. And I mean, there was a decent amount of people there. Don't get me wrong, but it was a very easy, as I was saying, to be able to get to court level for a match of that level, that caliber. How they do the scheduling is a little tricky. It's a big deal. They have their showcase courts. They have obviously Ash, that is the premier event, and they're trying to get a balance, I think, of new matches and new blood out there at the same time. Kind of showcase the Federers and so forth, who are just or box office and stuff. There's a picture that came out tonight of the Berdych-Thiem match that was, I think, played on the grandstand, and I'm telling you, it's probably 1/10 full. And Federer was playing at Ash. There's nobody there watching it. It was something we've talked a fair amount about. It's just how celebrity-driven the tour has become, with the top guys. There were so many more people watching Federer practice than many other main draw matches, and it just, with that amount of attention still being drawn to him, it's just almost like the middle level of the tour guys. They're just drowning in it. They can't. It's just a heavy weight umbrella or shadow that those guys pose it over the rest of the tour. So these guys like Thiem, listen, what is he, 20 years old? He's going to be around for a while. He's got, I think a lot of things are going to shake up when these top guys move on, with Nadal, Djokovic, and Federer do move on. Then it'll give these other guys a chance to breathe. But until then, it's still going to be about the top guys. One other point, too, you can really feel the absence of Nadal at this event. Okay. There's just something. It's just not the same. The excitement isn't there. I think a combination of him not being here and then the fact that the Americans laid another terror egg, the Bent did. It just affects just a little bit more of the same. A little more morale is down, and I think you can kind of feel it in the crowd that they're just not as geeked up as they've been in the past.
No, that's great observation, and of course we wouldn't know that unless you were there. We hear about it, we read about it, and it's sort of a familiar tune. But unless you're there, as you were, you can't really pick up on that. And Barry, you mentioned some other matches, and we'll certainly talk about the pros coming up in just a little bit. But you also mentioned you saw a fair amount of juniors action. Anybody in particular, or a few people jump out at you with what you saw?
Yeah, actually, it's just interestingly enough, we had one kid from our area here, a boy named Connor Hance. He made the finals of the 16 unders at Kalamazoo this year, and I go back with his mom, some 35 years. So she was out there, and he was playing, Actually, Patrick asked me to walk around him yesterday to watch junior matches. He had the day off from the booth. He was going to be just watching matches, but I was flying back. It's a full draw. We got, I guess our kids did really well. Donaldson looked very strong. I got a chance to watch him hit a little bit. He looks like a stud in the making. Kozlov looked really good. He looks like he's about 12 years old. He's just like, it's a disconnect between this incredibly adept tennis player, and he just, he doesn't even look like he shaves yet. So he's kind of an oddball out there. But, just a ton of talented kids. But you could just see the other part of it, too. You can really see the difference in the physical development. I'm looking at these teenagers, and it wasn't all that long ago in our history of tennis, that 17, 18-year-old kid would be challenging, going late into majors and a threat to win a major like a young Becker or Chang or those guys. And I'm just looking at these kids now, and I mean, there's not a single physical specimen yet that could even compare, just to the Mulfie and Tsonga types that are out there, day in and day out. So that part I found really, really striking, that there was no kind of freaky athletic prodigy phenom kind of coming up, especially on the men's side. I mean, there's a couple of the girls that are doing it, but that part was good. The doubles is exciting. The guys are just crushing balls out there. It's a little crazy on the when you see four, massive men smacking balls on one court. The doubles gets a little crazy out there. But I was very, very impressed. And it just seems, it's a very professional environment out there, and you got just a bunch of really, really, really great athletes doing their thing. But back to the point I made a second ago, there was a lot of networking and socializing going on. A lot of empty seats in the stadiums where a lot of people were just out, in the bar area, just kind of, catching up with friends and not terribly overly concerned about the play. And I found that kind of striking.
Yeah, it almost sounds a bit like Indian Wells to a point. You mentioned Donaldson. I found it very ironic. He played doubles with Michael Russell, twice his age, and he actually commented saying, the calmness and demeanor of Russell really helped him out on the doubles court.
Yeah, I think they went around. They beat they beat the other American kids, and then I think they lost to they might have lost to Bryant, if I'm not mistaken. But it's good to see. He just turned pro. He's 17. He's 300 in the world, and he's very, very excited to get out there and make his mark on the tennis world. And he's off to a nice start. 300 in the world with 17 is pretty good these days. And he's part of that next generation of American kids that they're really, really hopeful for, and hopefully we've got about 7 or 8 kids there that hopefully can keep pushing each other, TFO and all those guys, Reuben, and see if they can kind of all rise together and challenge each other to be better and better.
Sure. It was blowout city today, Barry, both on the men's side and ladies' side for the most part. We've got Roger Federer steamrolled today. Tomas Berdych got the job done as well. But let's look ahead tomorrow to a couple very intriguing men's semifinals, actually men's quarterfinals. Novak Djokovic, number 1 seed, taking on Andy Murray. We've got Murray getting through Tsonga in the round of 16, and his reward for getting through Tsonga is a quarterfinal date with Djokovic. That's very interesting, as well as Stan Wawrinka taking on late night, early morning Kei Nishikori taking out Raonic today, actually. And I want to get your thoughts on Djokovic, Murray, and Wawrinka Nishikori.
Yeah, no, some good matches coming up here. Backtracking just a little bit on what you said. Yeah, some of these scores have been a little bit lopsided. I think it's a combination, certainly on the Federer side of things. When he's playing people that can't hurt him, off the ground or with the serve, he's going to dictate. And I don't think he's lost. He lost to Cedric Granollers there, but he can really look good and make other players really, great tennis players look very poor in the process. But I think his little honeymoon is over now. He's got he's got Monfils, Berdych, and then whoever comes out of the top to deal with here. I think it's going to get a little tougher for him. Looking ahead to tomorrow, certainly, listen, this was a final 2 years ago, Djokovic and Murray.
Right.
Murray's got 2 wins over him in Grand Slam finals. He's been able to rise to the occasion against Djokovic. I think his game, if he's playing well, like he can play, gives Djokovic trouble. He can play He's got the defense to kind of keep Djokovic at bay, and Djokovic generally does not have enough offense to hit through Murray. So he gets in trouble with him sometimes. And certainly in some of the matches they played lately in the major finals. So I don't anticipate that to happen tomorrow. Murray just does not seem to be stepping up in the big matches this whole year. I don't think tomorrow is the day to do it. Djokovic looks like he's on a mission again. That said, they have a lot of history, and if Murray's best tennis is going to give Djokovic all the trouble he can handle. So we'll see how that shakes out. But I look for Djokovic to probably get through this in 4 sets and relatively comfortably.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think again, all credit to Andy Murray, who's had a pretty decent year. Other people would disagree, but again, coming back from back surgery, and he's had a lot he's going through, and I think he's had probably as good a season as he can. Not a great draw for him here at the U.S. Open. He's gotten to the quarterfinals, but he's given Djokovic trouble in the past. You mentioned the final a couple of years ago, and I'm going to go Djokovic in straights. I just think he's going to get off to a racing start, and I think he's going to take care of business. But we talked. Kei Nishikori taking out Raonic in 5, coming back from 2-1 down, ending at 2:26 a.m. today. And Stan Wawrinka, Stan gets through this match, as I think he will. He's back to the semis at the U.S. Open, and, this is where he was last year. We would have another Djokovic-Wawrinka semi if that holds true. But, Stan, not too many people talking about him, the number 3 seed, and has had a nice tournament, little ups and downs. But I'm going Stan in 4 over Nishikori. Your thoughts, Barry?
No, that's a very good point. There's always somebody who kind of just, who's of that Grand Slam caliber that, somehow just doesn't get, talked about that much in these events. And Wawrinka very quietly and has made his way into the quarters here. And, listen, he has been, he won the Australian on hard courts. He was in the semis here on the hard court last year and took Djokovic to 5. 5 tough sets and, blowing out Murray last year and, in convincing fashion. So, a healthy, focused Wawrinka here is dangerous. I mean, very dangerous. Back to your point a second ago with Nishikori, he finished on, it was a very tough day for Canada, obviously with Bouchard losing and then Raonic losing. I think Bieber even got arrested today, so it was a really tough day for Canada. But I think, for those guys, we talked about this off the air a little bit, but, to finish a match at 2:30 in the morning, and I'm sure he's, it's just, what does that do for his, what time does he get to bed? Does he get to bed at 5, 6 in the morning after the press and, and a physio and stuff? And that's just, I don't know, as a professional athlete, if that's healthy for your rhythms. I mean, I just don't know how you sleep right. I mean, his practice today must have been a little bit odd. And then he's got a day match with Wawrinka tomorrow. So I agree with you. I think Wawrinka he's certainly the fresher. And, and I just think he's just a little too powerful for Nishikori there. So I think I agree with you. Probably 4 sets. I think Nishikori's good for a set there. But yes, I see.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
No, I want to go back to that match that finished. I was very surprised that Milos Raonic did not get the job done. I expected more from him. 2-1 lead. I thought it was a good matchup for him. That one, all credit to Kei Nishikori for getting the job done, but I checked out of that match, Barry, after they split sets, and a lot of tennis watching over Labor Day weekend, but I was almost not quite stunned, but I was very surprised that Milos did not win that. I want to get your thoughts on that match from today.
Yeah, I saw a little bit of his match when he beat the guy from the Dominican, Burgers, in
right.
6, and he didn't look good. He easily could have lost his first 2 sets. And one thing to look at with Raonic, and I actually predict he'll be out at the top 10 next year. He has won way. There's just not enough separation in his matches. He's winning way too many 7, 6, and 3rds. His tiebreak record, I mean, he's played probably twice as many tiebreakers as anybody on tour this year. And when he gets a little bit off, I mean, that return game is just a mess, and it just doesn't look right. And So I just don't know how long you can keep, everything is just a razor thin with him. He just doesn't get an easy match. Even against inferior competition, he's still going 6-6-6 with these guys. And so I think in the grand scheme of things, you're playing on borrowed time at this level, and you're giving, letting this many guys hang around that long that are that good, you're just not going to come out ahead every time. And I think it caught up to him. Full credit to Nishikori. He's had a wonderful year. He's gotten a little banged up. And unfortunately with some of his injuries and stuff. But, when he's been healthy, he took out Federer. He's been right there with down in Miami. He was right there to beat Nadal before he got hurt. So he's been playing some of the best tennis on the tour this year. He's back in the top 10 for the first time. So it's not a total surprise to me that that he was able to, despite being so much smaller, that he was able to win that match. That said, I think, from in the ground stroking slug out, he's going to get in trouble with Wawrinka, I think, class there. But, yeah, Raonic is a little bit, listen, it's been a wonderful story. He's had a great run, and full credit to him. He's done it the right way with great coaching and hard work and a really great attitude. And, no shame on him losing, a tough five-setter like that, to a class opponent. But I think his luck, I think he's going to have his little downturn here soon, and he hasn't had it yet, but I anticipate it's going to catch up to him eventually here.
I want to ask you a question again. We're going to talk about the other men's quarters coming up here, but I do believe that Milos Raonic has a Wimbledon in him. I want to get your opinion on that.
The thing that catches up with me. First of all, if you haven't seen him in person, he's a massive human being.
Yeah.
He is huge. I mean, he's not only is he tall, but he's a big dude. I mean, he's 6'5", and I just don't know. The movement is always going to be an issue for him. There's only so much you can do in a physical frame like that. That said, if he's got the heater working, with a little, and he's obviously very mentally tough. He's able to win these really razor thin matches. But my personal take when it comes to the Wimbledon time is you need to be the great athletes win Wimbledon, and I just don't think he's in that athletic class. He'll be able to serve his way into the quarters and semis at pretty much every hard court and grass court event. But when he gets up against the Federers and the Djokovic, the guys who can return and get in and defend the court like they can, they do give him trouble. So that said, Federer's 33. He's not going to be around forever. Raonic is 23, 24 himself, so he's got some time. You're right. But yeah, just the movement's an issue. I just don't think athletically he's in the same class as those top guys are, and I don't know if you can serve your way to a major anymore in this era of great returners and great defenders. But listen, he's close enough, and stranger things have happened in professional tennis, no question.
Yeah, good point. We talked about Djokovic, Murray, and Wawrinka Nishikori tomorrow. Barry, the following day, we've got guys in action who played today, and a couple of interesting, intriguing matchups, quarterfinals for the men on the bottom half. I want to get your thoughts on Roger Federer, Gael Monfils. Obviously, Monfils, the acrobat, everybody wants to see him. They played a couple weeks ago in Cincinnati, went 3. Roger Federer had a very difficult run all the way to his title in Cincinnati, but he will play Gael Monfils for the second time in 2 weeks. He's going to play on Thursday night. And let's talk a little bit about Federer Monfils. I'm going to go Roger Federer in 4 sets here.
Yeah, I think that's probably an intelligent analysis there. Monfils is able to play it loose and kind of loosey-goosey and play to the crowd and kind of do what he's been doing here for up until it gets serious. Now it's real. Okay, that's a great win over Dimitrov, great win over Gasquet. He hasn't lost a set in the tournament yet. Now you're in the quarterfinals. You're going to be on Ashe. You're going to be playing Federer. Is he able to keep it together this long? Historically, this is where the rubber hits the road for him, and all of a sudden it gets in his head, and he's not able to perform at this level, or and sustain it for a 3 out of 5. That said, he seems to be at peace with himself. He seems to be at a place in his career where I think he's almost accepted the fact that he's probably not going to win a Grand Slam or become the best player in the world, and he's just able to be himself. And for better or worse, when he's clicking and he's healthy like he is right now, it's really working. He doesn't have a lot of voices in his head. He's operating without a coach. He's just got friends in his box that are supportive, and right now it's arguably he's playing the most solid tournament of his career right now. I mean, he's the last couple of wins have been outstanding. So I watched him practice on the court. On a practice court, he's absolutely the worst practicer I've ever watched in my life. He's just goofing off and hitting trick shots and just having fun. So I hope he's fit. It's going to be hot, it's humid, and he's going to be out there a while. So hopefully he's done the miles off the court to prepare for this event and to be late in a major at this point in his career. But once again, Federer's been fantastic right now. But I do think Federer's vulnerabilities will show up a little bit here. He can get pushed around by Monfils. Monfils is a heavy ball, and he can serve big, and he's going to give him all kinds of problems here. So I agree with you. I'm going to go Federer in 5 on this one. I think Federer will wear him down at the end.
Yeah, they played, I want to say, a Roland Garros semifinal 2-3 years ago. I think that was a semi, yeah.
That was a semi. I think Monfils got a set, but it wasn't overly competitive, though. I think Federer ran right through him for the most part.
Yeah, good point. And, Gael Monfils, the stick-around ability, if you will. He's had a great run, a great summer, and, I just think it's going to be a little too much Roger Federer on Thursday night. And, Barry, another one that's interesting, Tomas Berdych had a very solid first 3 months of the year. Let's not forget he dropped the semi to Wawrinka in Australia, and given what happened with Nadal in the final, you never know. Could have been Berdych possibly hoisting that trophy, and he won a 500 level tournament in Rotterdam, a big win for him there, and had a very solid 3 months, and then really disappeared. Not really sure what happened to Tomas Berdych, but here he is. He's in the quarterfinals of the U.S. Open, and he's going to be playing Marin Cilic, who, Barry, we've taken a look at some guys who have been on the shelf for a while, whether that be for a suspension, an injury, and have had very nice results coming back. Cilic on the sidelines for a little part of last year. I think he was 14 or 16 in the world. Due to not playing, he fell down to 40-some-odd. Big game. Here he is in the quarterfinals, and I think he made a semi in Australia 3-4 years ago, and everybody's sort of been wondering, what's up with this guy? He's working right now with Goran Ivanisevic. I'm actually going Marin Cilic in 4 sets over Tomas Berdych on Thursday. Your thoughts?
Yeah, that's another sleeper, so to speak, that's made his way to the quarterfinals here. He's won a couple tough matches. Grinded out a tough 5-setter today with Simon. I'm gonna go with Berdych, strictly because I think he's a little fresher. I don't think he's all worn out from, as you mentioned, he had a wonderful start to the year, and then he just kind of fell asleep in the clay court season and didn't have a very good summer either. So I just think he's fresh. He's playing big right now. He's really, really hitting the ball well today, and his role right through team. He's experienced here. He's been here. He took out Federer here a couple of years ago, so he's not afraid of the big stage. And it'd be interesting. Those two, you got a couple of big dudes, who can really slug the ball around the court. So I anticipate a very close match. It's a big match for both guys, and so I expect a few nerves in there. I'm going to go 5 sets and Berdych on this one myself. But I do agree with you. This could go either way, and it's good to see Cilic back. Cilic, he's no stranger. I think he's made the semis here before. A couple years ago, he took out Murray in a big match when Murray was playing really well. So he's not a stranger to these big events. He hasn't really had his breakthrough Grand Slam event, with a big win on the Grand Slam stage where, he really gets into the public's eye. But, he's playing really good tennis right now. So you gotta respect his abilities and, his chances here. But I think Berdych just got a little bit more in the power and in the experience area. So I'm going to go with him at 5 on this one.
Yeah, good point. And unfortunately, we've got Federer Monfils. Everybody's aware of that match. Djokovic Murray, obviously. Wawrinka won a major this year. He's on the radar. But this match, this is a large match. Obviously, 2 really big guys, but a huge match on the ATP Tour that, unfortunately, I think in the United States is not really on the radar, and yet is deservedly so, a quarterfinal match. And I really hope that, sports fans, not just tennis fans, tune in for this one, because I called it in 4 with Cilic, you called it in 5 with Berdych. It's going to be high-quality tennis, and unfortunately, I think not too many people are going to be tuning into this one.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. And it's something we talked a little bit about, just how dominant the stars of the game are, and just the shadow that they put over the rest of the tour. And like pretty much if Federer and Djokovic are not at an event, it's not really an event. Very much like the Tiger Woods effect on the golf tour. And even at this tournament now, it's just all about the top guys. It's all about Federer, Djokovic, Serena, and as I mentioned to you before, there's virtually nobody watching the British and team match today. The stadium was maybe a tenth full. While Federer was playing over on Ash. So, that's the problem. They have, and listen, full credit to the top guys, and they deserve every bit of the attention they get. And, but when there's more people waiting to watch Federer warm up than are watching British play a legitimate round of 16 match, then you have, that's just where the tennis fan is today, and it's going to be this way until these guys retire and move on, and create a little space for new faces and new personalities to take over. But these guys they're just so big, and when you're on the grounds there, you really feel it. You just realize it's really all about them, and the fans. The fans have these guys have been out there over a decade now. When you think about the time that the relationships they've created with the fan base, and the fans they get their fix from Federer and Nadal and these guys and Serena and so forth and Sharapova, and it's been a decade plus of rooting for them, and they're not about to change allegiances now just because there's a new hot shot coming up they may not be all that familiar with. So until these guys move on, this is kind of how it's going to be. Unfortunately, these guys will be kind of treated like second class citizens on the tour, and in spite of how phenomenal athletes they are and how great of players they are, just the way it's just kind of the era that they're stuck in. And as you said before, it's very hard for these guys to break through against these top guys. There's just only one guy can win these tournaments. So making it to a quarter, as admirable as that is, it's just not enough to get the tennis public or any kind of sporting public to pay attention to you on any kind of concerted level.
Great point, Barry. We're coming up on a break. I'd like to remind listeners, you call us, ask us questions. Pete Ziebron, Barry Buss, who was in New York for a few days with a book signing with Bobby Blair, Sven Gronfeld, Billie Jean, and you can reach us at 347-637-97. Barry, we had a couple of ladies' quarterfinals today we're going to talk about, as well as Serena Williams in action as well coming up tomorrow, and a few other stories. And, at the conclusion of the U.S. Open weekend, we've got Davis Cup, some interesting selections, if you will, by Coach Jim Courier, as well as we've got the Davis Cup semifinals coming up as well. We're going to talk about that when we come back right after this.
Hey, Thirst, can I try out a few Coke Summer sound effects on you? Cool. You okay with this? And this? And what about this? Gotcha there, Thirst. That wasn't sound effects. That was a Coke. I'm no longer thirsty. You're so out of here. Coca-Cola. Open happiness.
What is this bill for $562? Let me call these people.
Thanks for calling Big Tobacco. How can I be of assistance?
Hi, I was going through my mail and saw this bill saying I owe $562 for smoking-related expenses.
That's correct, ma'am.
Yeah, what's the deal with this bill?
You see, smokers miss more work and retire earlier, which costs Nevadans $903 million in lost productivity per year. Also, smokers get sick with diseases like lung cancer and emphysema, costing another $565 million in medical expenses. So, when you add it up and divide by a total number of Nevadans, it comes out to $562 per Nevada household.
Okay, but I don't smoke.
Well, whether you smoke or not, every Nevadan pays the bill.
You know what? I'm not paying this bill.
Actually, you already did. And you'll be making the same payment again next year. Well, thank you for your call.
Hello?
Is smoking worth it? Learn more at smokefreevegas.com. That's smokefreevegas.com. Or for free help quitting smoking, call 1-800-QUIT-NOW. That's 1-800-QUIT-NOW.
Made possible by funding from the Department of Health and Human Services.
Little Caesars, home of the $5 hot and ready pepperoni pizza, now has a deep, deep dish pizza with 8 crispy caramelized corner slices and even more cheese and pepperoni. So head on down and grab a large for just $8 and tell them Alan Varner sent you. They won't know who that is, but as a voice actor, I'm always trying to get my name out there. Check me out at alandoesvoices.com. That's ALAN doesvoices.com. But first, get the new deep, deep dish pizza. It's hot and ready every day from 4 to 8 p.m. for just $8, only at Little Caesars.
Pizza.
At participating locations plus tax.
Hi, this is Jeff Salzenstein.
Hi, this is Kendall Hart.
Hi, this is Dick Gould.
Hi, this is John Embry, and you are listening to
the Pro 10 Radio Network.
And welcome back to Passing Shots on the Pro 10 Radio Network. Pete Ziebron with ATP journalist and author Barry Buss. Barry was just in New York with a book signing at the U.S. Open with Bobby Blair, along with Sven Gronfeld, Billie Jean King, and others. And Barry, looks like we've got a caller on the line. I believe this is Kevin from San Francisco. Going to welcome Kevin to the call. Kevin, good evening and welcome to Passing Shots on Pro 10 Radio.
Hey, guys.
Good evening.
How you doing, Kevin?
Great. You're having a great discussion out there. I've been listening to some of the comments, and I just the one that stood out to me was, wow, Barry, that was kind of harsh on Milos Raonic. Weren't you?
I've been following the pro game for a long time, and I just think there's just not enough separation in his game where I think he's just, the door's open way too often, and a little bit, he's had a lot of good fortune winning these tiebreakers that he keeps winning, a lot of 7-6 in the third matches against relatively inferior competition. I mean, when I say that, I mean people ranked in the 50s, 60s, 70s. He's had a very steady ascent up the rankings here. He hasn't had a lot of hiccups, but like everyone on the tour out there, he's going to have a lull. He's going to lose a few matches. He's going to choke a match or two away, or he's going to just lose some earlier round matches to elite competition. So I just don't think he's got quite the staying power. I think the movement will always be an issue for him. He's an enormous guy, 6'5", and pretty broad, and on the slower surfaces he'll struggle. Serve is always going to keep it. But I just think over time, the way the tour works, and there's just too much talent out there to be giving these guys what I would call a puncher's chance to take him out. There's guys who are right there within a point or two every set, with these breakers that he seems to end up in every match he plays, and you just can't pull those out all the time. But nothing against him personally. He's been a wonderful, wonderful story these last couple of years on the men's tour, and all credit to him for that. I just think his staying power might be limited at that level.
I would have thought the same, except that I watched him for 3 years here in San Jose at the SAP Open, and people tried to hype him up, especially after he won his third title, like, oh, he's next big thing. But then he would always go to Indian Wells or some other tournament and have somebody like Federer just completely expose his movement, like you mentioned. I mean, that was always a weakness. But then something really kind of happened last year where with his work with Ivan Lupcic, he really started to work on those deficiencies of the movement and of really kind of using his core and becoming more than just an indoor power player, and it really made a big jump, kind of like the way Isner kind of really tried to reassert himself into being more than just a serve and a tiebreak guy, last summer. And so it's actually kind of surprising for me to see him break down as badly movement-wise as he did at Wimbledon and now at the U.S. Open. Do you think that was just kind of a moment where he just kind of pulled it all together, but you don't think he's going to be able to maybe revisit that or get some sustained growth in that direction?
I think it's a lot of this there's a relativism to this in the sense that, when you go up against a kind of a Federer or a Djokovic or a Murray and Nadal type of mover or on the court, it just everybody pales in comparison. Those guys are just a little bit freakish in how they're able to cover the court and do what they're able to do. And all the hard, and listen, I completely agree with you. I remember Murray dismantled him a couple of years ago at the Open and really exposed his movement badly. And then, he has worked hard. The other thing I have noticed historically with the larger guys, and this goes back to a Marat Safin type of thing, if you look at the history of people who've made it to the top of the rankings, I think that, Safin might have been the tallest. I think it's 6'4", but he was only there for a brief time. I think that beyond that, there's been nobody any taller than 6'3" or or shorter than that. The guys that are that big, and invariably they have those tough days where they just don't move well. He's a huge dude, and there's going to be days when he goes out there and he's just not going to be that light on his feet, and he's vulnerable. And you could see it in the way Kohlschreiber took it to Isner. Isner was not in a good place physically that day, and he could make him look really bad, and very attackable. So, how much can they rely on their serve? I mean, listen, his serve is enormous, and it's always going to keep him in matches. But I just think to break through to that next level, to be a Grand Slam champion, in the class of the top 4 or 5 guys that we're talking about now, there's just more needed there that I just don't know if he'll ever be able to get that, just being, having the handicap of being as big as he is.
Right. Fair enough.
No,
thank you very much, guys.
Great point, Kevin. And any other questions for Barry? He was just in New York with a book signing and caught some action. I think, as you may have heard earlier on in the show.
Right. Well, I was thinking about, it was also, I think maybe part of this comes from when you're a part of the industry and you've been around tennis and you've seen a lot, you're kind of a brass tacks kind of guy. I get the sense that you kind of say it how it is. And so it may sound a little bit harsh, like with the roundage comment, but you're right, it's fairly accurate. But do you really think that the crowd has turned on Maria to that?
Absolutely. No, I was there. And listen, I'm friends with Maria. She, her former coach Michael Joyce is a very close friend of mine down here in Los Angeles. And it's not just there. I mean, I was in the stadium for the Wozniacki Sharapova, all 3 sets of that in Ash, and I'm telling you what, it was very loud and very, very pro Wozniacki. And not to say that Maria doesn't have her crew of fans there. I got to be honest with you, and it permeates through the media and so forth. The grunting and the shrieking has literally just turned people off. It really has. And,
right.
And it's and I know exactly what's going on there. That's just her nerves and her competitiveness. There's no intention to get some kind of competitive advantage over her opponent in any kind of a distracting way. I mean, she's one of the fiercest competitors the game's ever seen. I just think, I think on the other side of the coin too, I think there could have been a pro Wozniacki tint to that crowd, just because she's gone through some tough times, personally in her career. Has taken, she's been a finalist there before, and so she's got a good connection to New York, and now that she's playing well again. But there was no question in my mind that they were anti-Maria there, and it was probably 3/4 to 1/4 in favor of Wozniacki, and quite loud, actually, to be honest with you. So yeah, I think the thing with Maria that's really complicated for the tennis fan, and what I try to do personally when I commentate on this stuff is take my fan out of me, and just try to be as much an objective analyst as I can be. Because it's impossible not to have some kind of emotional connection to all these players because we've watched them for so long. But I just think people are kind of tired of her. They really, she's been in the public eye for a decade now, and she really hasn't warmed up enough. I think there's just a part of her where she's just concealing herself publicly just a little too much, and there's just that lack of vulnerability and access and availability, I guess, for the average fan. It's kind of caught up to people. I think people appreciate her for everything she's done as an athlete and as a young woman, but on and off the court. But I just think as for that connection to her, it just comes up a little short, I think, for a lot of players, and there are other people to root for that they feel a little bit more connected to.
Do you think it also has something to do with not just the grunting, and also she's very businesslike, and it really kind of does come across as a little cold sometimes. But do you think ultimately it comes down to the fact that there is this woman, Serena, who whenever Maria goes on the court, she shrivels into a shell of her former self. She just cannot compete against Serena. And she lost her so horribly. And I think that sometimes permeates the public persona more so because Maria's had a great career. She's had a Hall of Fame career. But it will always be in relationship to Serena and how she just could never beat Serena. Do you think that's part of how she's perceived?
I think there's a little bit of I think that's a fair point in the sense that it's hard for people to get 100% behind her when you kind of know there's no real rivalry there because she's not winning. It's such a one-sided encounters between those two, and for whatever reason, Serena, I don't know if it's so much that Maria just can't compete against her, but Serena definitely brings her A+ game for her, and it can't be more dialed in when she plays her. So I think that's probably part of it, and then Maria's, she's tough to, she's had such up and down, results that it's kind of hard to emotionally invest in someone who's just not, it's a struggle with her all the time, whether it be the double faulting and then just some of the really just up and down play over the last, 6 or 7 years for her, where she just hasn't been a consistently reliable person to kind of put your heart and soul behind. I think that's part of it too, and so certainly she's not the best. She's definitely not the best of her era. Serena has been just so dominant there, in the head-to-head with them. And, I just think that, it's a crowded field out there. There's an awful lot of people to root for, and then she gets up against a really popular player like Wozniacki, and it really showed up that she's not the fan favorite. And I think another part of it too, you made a point a second ago, how business-like it is, but in the business-like, it's almost gone too far. It's like, okay, the war's over, come out of the bush, put your weapon down, be friendly with these people. She still completely isolates herself from the other girls on the tour. I mean, here she lives in Manhattan Beach here. She trains at Manhattan Beach Country Club. Azarenka lives here now, too. She wanted to train there, too. Maria wouldn't let her. Maria said, no, she's not allowed to practice here if I'm here in town. She just keeps that separation. Yeah, no, it's kind of hardcore. I trained with her a couple of years ago in a situation where I wasn't feeling well. I was playing with Moschina first and then supposed to play with Maria second, and I said, God, why don't they just sit with each other? And she said, no, she just doesn't do that. She will not play with other people on the tour. She will not befriend them, and she won't practice with them. And I think it's just kind of what, it gets, people pick up on that. There's one part of it to try to sustain some kind of competitive advantage over your peers, but at some point it just wears people out. It's just not, she could do a little bit more in that area to ingratiate herself to the fans and the other players, and I think they've just kind of burned out on her.
And you think Sugarpova just isn't enough?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Say that again.
You don't think Sugarpova is enough?
Yeah. No, it's not. And then in the chat room and all that stuff. No, that's part. Now it's just almost like she's exploiting her fan base to make another buck. She's got her little social chat room, Sharapova social club or whatever it is, and selling a bunch of candy. It's just kind of enough's enough. She had a chance, I think, in the Olympics there. Well, she had a chance in the Olympics there when she could have gone up there and actually represented something and said something and had some crossover appeal. Instead, she just kind of, she hid, she played it safe, and she's just going to be this kind of brand, this commercial icon creation of IMG, and and everyone's going to laugh all the way to the bank as long as she's still playing tennis. And she had a chance to stand for something a little bit more there, and she didn't do it. And I just think it alienates people. She pretends to be Russian. She's about as Russian as I am. I mean, she's got no accent anymore. She lives here. She trains here. Russians don't like her because she just pretends to be Russian and play Fed Cup every now and then. So, it's just I think it's just kind of run its course. And no disrespect to her, but she's just done the best she can, navigating her career. And I just think that the public has not just hasn't completely warmed to her.
Great. Yeah, Kevin, thanks. And stay on
time.
No, Kevin, thanks, and stay on the line with us. And, it's a great segue, Barry. Quick question for you. You mentioned the name, and I was going to bring this up, with the shrieking in the New York crowd tired of Maria. But we've got an interesting, intriguing matchup tomorrow with Victoria Azarenka, who's actually had performed very well at the U.S. Open, who is louder than Maria Sharapova. She's taking on Katerina Makarova, who took out the darling of the U.S. Open this year, Jeannie Bouchard, yesterday. And wondering your thoughts on, the shrieking, if you will. Who's the crowd going to go for here with Makarova, who took out Bouchard, against Azarenka, who can be a little bit more annoying than Sharapova, if you will?
What happened last night? I guess he tried to sing "Happy Birthday" to Monfils last night.
Yeah.
It was just a disaster. The way I think Mary Jo Fernandez came on and said, "I prefer the grunting to her singing." that's too good. Listen, full credit to Makarova. I saw her play some doubles out there this last weekend, and they beat the Williamses today too. So they had that's a great result for them. She's playing good tennis. I think Azarenka's, kind of got a little lucky here this last one. But we've talked about her a little bit before. If she's healthy, I was very surprised that she's taken a while to get her tennis legs back under her, especially on the hard court season this summer. She didn't perform well, but now she seems to be getting a little bit better. She's not playing great, but she played tough enough last night to win that match. And she's obviously been in the finals here a couple times, so I think she's not afraid of the hard courts and the big stage. So I anticipate her to come through here, Azarenka, and kind of find a little bit of that experience, pull through.
Yeah, I'm going to go Makarova here. I think she's way under the radar, and I just want to point out 2011 Australian Open. She beat Serena. It was either 2-3 or 3-2. Serena, not number one at that point in time. I believe she was number 12 in the world. But Makarova gets good results throughout the season, not necessarily in the majors, but. I'm seeing Katerina Makarova getting through this, and obviously that would be a semifinal matchup. I think Serena Williams is just going to take care of business in right around the 1 hour mark against Panetta when they play tomorrow. I don't think that's much of a contest, quite honestly. All credit to Flavia, who won Indian Wells, obviously, earlier this year, but Serena Williams, obviously game face on. Finally feeling good on the court, best result at a major this year, and I don't see anyone getting in her way of that. But I'm going to go Makarova. Kevin, I want to get your thoughts on Makarova Azarenka.
I think that, I'm not sure. I think we may have discussed this earlier on Twitter, but when I wrote out my preview yesterday, one of the things that just stands out clearly to me is that Vika is a big match player. She thrives in those big match situations where she's pushed to the brink and the crowd is either for her or against her. They're just responding to her, which she loves either way. And I think that Makarova is just not going to – she's not going to have it. She's not a big match player. And, and now that I've had a chance to actually be on the court during some of these matches, you have got to love this environment as a player in order to excel. And I think that Vika really does love it. And Makarova is a good player, and there's a difference. So I think that when the pressure gets applied in that quarterfinal tomorrow, it's going to be tough for her. She's going to try to pull it back in, but she's never followed up those big upsets that she's had with a really good deep run.
That's a fair point. I think a lot of there are things called comfort zones, and I think you see a lot of that even with Bencic, and her just kind of flaming out today. You have to. There's a rite of passage. Sometimes you can get a free pass through some of these steps, even with Bellis, having just a terrible result here in the juniors today. She went out in the second round of the juniors after all the hype last week. So now she's this public figure, and these are all these little steps that you have to take, and some people are able to leapfrog some of these quite quickly and, become child prodigies, and other ones are going to have to do it the old-fashioned way and week in, week out. And Makarova is an example. She's been out on tour for a while. She's had some great results. She's a top 20 player. She's played, on the stadium courts and beaten Serena's and other big wins, but for some reason something happens to her right around this round where she's just not able to do as you said, keep stepping up on the big stage and make a run at one of these tournaments like some of her peers have. And she's at a spot there. You've got people like Lisicky who've made these finals, and other Halep and other people who are able to go deep in these events, and somehow she's been stuck in kind of around 16 quarters kind of thing. So I think Vika, this is where she excels. She's a 2-time Grand Slam winner, and she could have had a couple more in there with a little luck. So I think it's her match to lose, and if she plays her, she does what she does best. Her best tennis win.
I think that
Go ahead, Kev.
I was going to say, I think that Barry kind of hit it on it a little bit with the men as well, in terms of their physical prowess for the top guys. I think for all the players, the men and the women, the top players, the elite players are the ones who can really thrive in this very, very weird atmosphere of show tennis. They live for this moment of hitting a shot for thousands of people watching. And I don't know if the lay player or the lay person can ever really appreciate how, like, somebody like Serena thrives under the pressure of wanting to hit an ace on match point. She lives for that moment. And the players who do well are the ones who live for those moments. And Vika is one of those kinds of players. And that has, even apart from, like, her lack of movement and stuff like that, that really has driven her far along with her competitive fight. So, I think that Makarova is going to, she's got a decent enough chance, but I think that I hate, I'm not a big Vika fan. I won't say I hate her. I respect her play. I hate the sound that she makes, because it gets into that larger discussion of it's of grunting, and I use air quotes around it because it's not really grunting. It's a vocalization that she uses to go with her hitting. But in a lot of ways, like you were saying, Pete, it is much louder than Maria's. I don't think people understand that Maria's sound comes off bad on TV because they're mic'd. Vika sounds that way live. She doesn't need to be mic'd. She's just as annoying live as she is on TV. And that makes it tough to kind of get behind her. But there's still a lot to respect, thank God, with her ability. So I see her getting through to, Serena. Again.
Well, now that she's gotten rid of Red Foo, I'm willing to give her a second.
Yeah, Barry, we started off the show talking about your co-author book, Hiding Inside the Baseline with Bobby Blair. You've also written First in the Field of Two, your junior tennis memoir. You've got another book coming up. You've written a lot of essays. If you could just talk a couple more points before we sign off, a little bit about some of the work you're doing on an upcoming publication, and then we're going to leave tonight's broadcast with just a little bit of a discussion on Davis Cup captain Jim Courier's selection of his players for his team in Chicago. But a little bit about some of the work that you're doing, Barry, with what you've got coming up, if you would.
Thank you. Yeah, and basically, I think what we're going to be doing here, I'm going to title this thing called the American Tennis Project, and what I've been working on doing this pretty much this whole calendar year is just trying to collect different essays and different interviews with people in all different facets of the game. And I'm going from the junior game to the college game with Dick Gould and Paul Goldstein. I've been dealing with the tennis parenting angle with former pros Kelly Jones and Tammy Whitlinger and the raising of their daughter in the junior game. Then dealing in player development and interviewing Patrick McEnroe and other people coming up. I've got some interviews with Tim Mayotte coming up and Jose Higueras, hopefully, from player development about the coaching at the level of the game, and a variety of other things. Looks like Nick Bollettieri will be able to sit down with me at some point here, and we'll be talking about the academies and the role of the academies in the American tennis past and going towards the future. Right now, I think actually I'm probably going to be launching a website, I think, in the next month or two is the way things are looking here. I think I'm going to be doing something along those lines, I think, instead of the book. I think the book is, by the time the book gets published and edited and everything else out, all the stuff will be passé. I think what I'll be able to do with the website is have 6 or 7 different categories there that I can constantly be feeding information into over the next couple of years. And what I really hope to do with this thing is try to first of all get a good dialogue going between all the competing voices in the tennis world right now. There's an anti-USTA element out there that needs to talk to the USTA people in a healthy environment. And I hope to kind of be the broker to those kind of discussions. And then over the course of the next year or two, as we keep getting more and more information and more people on the record about where they stand, I really hope to be able to kind of almost come out with a policy paper in a sense of what needs to be done at every step, every level of the game. From the juniors to coaching to parenting to development to the business side of things to academies to all of that stuff, and see if we can make a difference. And I think
that's a big chunk.
Yeah, I think we can do it, though. I think there's I have enough background in all these areas, and I know enough people in these areas and people are excited about this. They want to contribute and participate in this and be on the record about what they think can be done to improve the system. And I think the USTA is very aware of what I'm doing, and they're very excited about the direction I'm going with this. And in a sense, the tennis kind of needed this. I wouldn't say it's an autopsy, but it's kind of a checkup, really a really thorough kind of checkup on their state of the game in America right now. And it's a very good time to do this. There's a lot of things changing. A lot of things need to be changed. There's a little, obviously a little bit of angst because we're struggling in the men's game and not, without a champion for a while now. And just see if we can, put some stuff out there that can hopefully make the next generation a little healthier, a little more productive, and improve on the climate out there, because there is there's some tension out there, and I think we need to try to be a bridge here to all the different voices out there that care, but we all kind of want the same thing, and it's just how do we go about accomplishing that, and that's really what I'm hoping to do, is to be the person to be able to communicate that to the tennis public at large.
No, I love the fact that it's going to be a website. I mean, you've gotten 2 books under your belt, and obviously another one would be great. But obviously electronic media is current. You can respond to that in real time and have these discussions much like we're having on the air. But my biggest takeaway with what you just said, Barry, is that there's a lot of people excited about it. I love the fact that you said not quite an autopsy, but a checkup, and that really resonates. That's a nice visual, a very good analogy, and it's nice to know that all parties, yes, we all want the same thing. It is broken, can be fixed. It's going to take a little bit of time, a lot of time, energy, and effort, but full credit, Barry, for getting the parties together to talk about this, and hopefully a better product will result.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's kind of where, I've been doing this for a couple of years now, just the policy stuff and just analyzing all the different parts of the game. And, I think when you get, the nice thing about the electronic media, too, with the website is, I can write at length at this stuff, and I can add to it. And, all the people I've interviewed in the last few months here have already agreed to be re-interviewed a year from now. And you just keep checking back and see how things are developing. And, I think in time here, we're not going to convert everybody. I've got some opponents out there that are, that curse at me, and that's fine. I take a different approach than some of them, and I'm not afraid to stand up to the Wayne Bryant and the people that have a, really different take on how we should move forward than I do, and others, that are on my side on these issues. But I fully intend to interview him too. He's invited me to have lunch a few months back, and I'll be glad to sit down with him and lock horns with him. And try to, just try to get a better understanding. And I think once again, it's one of the confusing things in the social media and the internet is it's easy to feel combative and adversarial and that like somehow we're all on different sides here. But really, at the end of the day, we all want American tennis to do is, to be as healthy a place to raise our kids in a healthy environment professionally for those who make our living in this environment, and for all the fans who invest their hard-earned money and their scarce time in support of our sport, and we want to make it as good as we can for everybody. And I think that in a couple of years of hard work here, just keep putting these pieces out there. It's all going in the right direction. So I'm really excited about where this is going.
Nice. And Barry and Kevin, last point tonight. Yes, we have the U.S. Open second week right now, but 10 days from now, we've got Davis Cup semifinals, Italy at Switzerland, Czech Republic, France. But I'm going to switch gears a little bit because an announcement was made, I believe, today. U.S. Davis Cup captain Jim Courier selected Sam Querrey to play for the United States. He has 2 victories over Steve Johnson this summer. Steve Johnson arguably has played better tennis, has the better ranking. On this show, Passing Shots, we've had legendary Davis Cup coaches and players, Dennis Ralston, we've had Tim Mayotte, Dick Stockton, among others, and everybody says Davis Cup is tough stuff, and just want to get your thoughts, both of your thoughts, Barry, Kevin, on Coach Courier's decision to take Sam Querrey over Steve Johnson for Davis Cup in Chicago against Slovakia.
Kevin, you go first there.
I think it's a tough one. I think that Courier, I'm going to try to be political in what I say because because I wear a couple of different hats in terms of tennis. But I think that Courier is in a tough place because I think that the prevailing thought would be to go with Querrey because he just has a slightly better pedigree than. Or CV might be the better comparison than Steve Johnson at this point. But he's just so hit or miss in the Davis Cup realm. And, he's hit or miss in tournaments, for God's sakes. He is one of the most unlikely top Americans that you'll ever find. He's got all the talent in the world, but he just goes in and out so dramatically, from great high to very low lows, very quickly, and Davis Cup is very tough stuff, and see him making the contribution at this stage where his head is still not quite fully engaged with where his game needs to be. I can't see him making an impact for the team in the way that we need him to. And that's not saying that Steve Johnson's going to be much better, because I think that Steve has had some great results. He's gotten a lot smarter in terms of his play. He's really grown up a lot since leaving, from the college ranks and working through the challenger system. But I think that Davis Cup is still it's a step above it. He's not going to have the impact either. So I think Courier was left between a rock and a hard place. Do I go with Query?
Right. He took the safe route. I mean, I think to take one of the younger guys. He took the safe route. I personally, I would have sat Isner and Query down, and I would have brought Johnson and Sock in, and gotten these guys in. And we're playing Slovakia. We got the Bryant brothers. I just can't see us losing at home. But I think if we'd have brought a couple of young guys in, really gave them an opportunity to step up on the Davis Cup stage and see if we got a young, excitable kid like a Sock out there. He's going to be around for a while, and let's get his feet wet now and let him get some experience at this against some of the lesser teams. Unfortunately, we're going to have to go through here before we get back on the world stage in Davis Cup, and I think it'd have been a really good chance for the kid.
I think you're right. Sock is a really great choice, but how's that back?
Well, I think he's okay. I think he might have just dinged himself a little bit. I mean, he played doubles, so I don't think he's that hurt. But I just think put these guys out there. I don't think there's an awful lot to lose in this match. Listen, if we lose at home to Slovakia, whatever, then we just go. We're already struggling in the world stage here. We got to play the qualifying round here for a bit. If we have to play one more, so be it. But I just think getting these guys, some experience, I just think there's no way that they would have lost. But again, Courier's job is to win. If he loses this match, he's in all kinds of. I can't imagine he's going to be Davis Cup captain too much longer either. So he needs to get some results, and so he took the safer route. And I anticipate these guys to step up and do well there.
But but if not Courier, then who else? I think actually Courier has really pretty good job with the guys. I think he knows when to push them, because I've had a chance to talk with him about the Davis Cup selection. In fact, I talked with him about Query at one point, and I think that he is, he's not so kid glovish with these guys. He'll give them business when he needs to, but besides him, who else could step up? Who we already haven't had to step up? Who already hasn't done the job?
Well, I just feel,
this can't really,
Yeah, we got a few. Listen, Donald Young is out there. We got a few guys that are just hanging out there who are fairly capable of stepping into Chicago and winning, at home against Slovakia. I don't think it's too tall an order.
I mean, as coach, not as player like that.
Yeah,
coach.
I think there's a full history of guys who could step in and do the job. I think the coaching of Davis Cup is a little overrated in the sense that. I just don't think it's that difficult a job. It's a 1 week here, every couple of months, and you got the Bryans out there doing their thing, and we just need a couple of guys to play singles and just, look good out there. So, yeah, I anticipate our guys doing good and having a good result, and hopefully, the angst over who we choose to play won't be such a big deal. Hopefully, one of these guys will step up and separate themselves and put themselves up with Isner's class and get back up in the rankings, and it'll be fairly obvious who our two singles players should be.
Yeah, great points. Any other thoughts from either gentleman before we sign off for tonight?
I'm good.
I think
it's exciting. Okay,
I'd like to ask Barry one question. Sure. For Barry. One last question. Do you feel? I feel like the issue of the death of American tennis, and the lack of American men and these kinds of things. I still feel like that becomes such an overblown issue at times. Do you feel the same way, or do you actually feel like we do have a systemic problem, or just the basic fact is it's a global game? Everybody's in it now where everybody wasn't in it before.
Well, I think, yeah. I mean, if you go back to when the Open era began in, the 70s and 80s, basically, we had such a head start on the rest of the world in the sense that we had we had the infrastructure in place. We had the junior tennis, junior tennis schedules. We had college tennis. We had academies. We had super coaches. We had, and then we had champions coming. So we had, we had all the tournaments over here, that you could shake a stick at. So it was really, really set up, and all the satellites. It was very, very set up for Americans to do extraordinarily well and to really fill out the rankings, not even so much to control the top 10, but, to be able to put 20, 30 guys in the top 100. Now, after the Olympics in 84, you've got every country has a budget and has a federation and has a centralized support system for whatever talented athletes. Other countries do not have football, basketball, baseball, hockey, and whatnot, taking all of their best athletes away from the system. So you have the rest of the world playing. You've got the best athletes playing from the rest of the world, and you don't have the best athletes in America playing right now. That's essentially what's happened. I mean, these guys at the top are very good, but they're just, when you look athletically at Isner and Query and Sock and Johnson, they do not compare to the top guys, the Tsongas and Monfils and Djokovics and Nadal. It's not even close. So it's just a different, there's only so much. All the coaching in the world is going to change that. I do really feel, though, at some very primal level here that this, in spite of, this has been a golden era for professional tennis with the Big Four doing what they've done. Even then, the fact that one of those guys is not an American has had a profound effect on tennis in America. And, I mean, just to imagine that one of the top four was an American and routinely going deep into Grand Slams, how tennis crazy America would be. It would just be another tennis boom, and I think the angst in the tennis community for the next great American is real. It has certainly affected the commerce side of things. We're losing tournaments to the rest of the world, and so on the commercial side of things, we have our big events, the Indian Wells, Miami, Cincinnati, the Open, and so forth, but the smaller events have really struggled because we don't, the tennis isn't there. I mean, I'll give you a case in point. On Sunday in New York City, I went out to hit some balls with a couple people. We went over to a court. It was 10 o'clock right by Yankee Stadium, 12 beautiful, U.S. Open-style hard courts, and not a single person on the courts. Not one. At 10 o'clock on a beautiful Sunday morning in New York City. So, tennis is down, and so it needs a shot in the arm. Where is that going to come from? It's going to come from another great American, someone who really can captivate, the attention of the sporting public and kids. And, as much as we want to try to create one with player development and all the anxiety around not having a great American on the horizon, the fact is, I don't know if you can create one. It's a complete confluence of variables that just have to come together in one person at one time. And and I think we're a little bit. It's kind of interesting how, if you think about it, we just assume we've had great players. We've only had a few, we really haven't. We've had McEnroe and Connors and Sampras and Agassi. You could throw Courier in there, maybe Roddick. That's like 5 or 6 guys over 30, 40 years. It's not like we've had that many, okay, that have been unfortunately, those guys have had long careers, so there was a sustenance to them being so great. So short of the next prodigy coming, they're going to have to keep the sport afloat through hard work and grassroots work, and I just think the tennis public is very spoiled, incredibly spoiled. We've just been everything we've been born into is always having a great elite player at the top of the rankings. So this is the first time we've had to deal with not having that. It's been a few years now since Roddick and these guys retired. So now there's a little bit of angst. It's a different time, and there's a lot of pouting and a lot of whining going on out there, and I think people just need to kind of sack up and grow up a little bit and just realize, we're not sort of preordained to be the best at tennis at everything, and that we're just in a little bit of a down cycle, and hopefully it should cycle back out in time.
Well, that also leads into the discussion that you're trying to have with all the different factions within tennis about how to do this, and it kind of plays into a certain group feels like, well, this is how we're going to develop the next player, and then another group thinks, no, that's wrong. This is how we're going to do it. Do you think that this panic kind of sense that people are always talking about kind of entrenches all these different ideologies to work against one another as opposed to trying to come together?
Well, this is where it gets fascinating, I think, in tennis. That's a very, very good point. I think that the problem with tennis, one of the beautiful things about it is there's no right way to do it, and one of the confounding things about it is there's no right way to do it, and everybody's right. I mean, every different system, whether it be the collegiate system or the turn pro early system or the academy system or the, have a stay with your primary coach system, there are examples in every, in all kinds of our best players over the last 40 years of how to do this, and all of them are right, because there's plenty of evidence to support every single theory, and and everyone wants to bash player development. Now, player development's kicking butt right now. I mean, the girls are, every one of those girls that are in the top 50 now are straight out of Boca, and have been working together. They came out of nowhere. And now they've got, Coco, those girls are in the top 50 now and pulling off top 10 wins right and left now. So Shelby Rogers and Lauren Davis, and, you can go right down the line. Now, they haven't broken through the elite ranks and stuff. So there's arguments that go in every direction here. I think what really frustrates me is just the finger pointing, that everybody, everybody's just trying to blame, the blame game that's going on. It's very toxic. Everyone everyone thinks that, Patrick McEnroe gets up in the morning and just can't figure out, all he can think about is how he's going to ruin American tennis, and it's sad, it's really kind of depressing to me that that's really where how disillusioned a lot of people have become. There's an awful lot of people out there working really, really hard to get this right. Now, back to your questions more specifically, if there was a way to do this, a way to create the great player, trust me, it's $1 billion business. And if somebody would
the money.
Well, somebody would have figured it out by now. If there was a formula that could create a top 10 in the world tennis player, everybody would know it and everybody would be applying it by now. There isn't one. Once again, I come back to this. It's an incredible confluence of variables where you have to have, resources and you have to be born into the right body and the athleticism and the mental toughness and the desire and
right. But then you hear, what about Spain? You always hear,
yeah, but Spain's a little overrated in my opinion. I mean, let's take Nadal out of the thing. What else is there? Really, it's a very tennis-driven country. It's got a great climate. A lot of guys came up. But beyond that, I mean, they really had you got it's Moya and Bruguera. You had a bunch of clay court wins and stuff, and that's great. But other than that, they really haven't been. They've got a lot of guys in the rankings, but it hasn't been that dominant. And quite frankly, Verdasco and Lopez and those guys are flamed out pretty dramatically, in my opinion. Ferrer's 33, 34. And I think in 3 or 4 years, Spain is going to be an afterthought. They don't have anything on the horizon themselves. So look, I mean, Sweden had this run where they made all these great players, and now they have no one in the top 300. So it cycles. It's just cycles, and I just think ours will come back again. We have everything in place to do this correctly, and I just think we'll just have to get the right kids up there, and hopefully this next wave of juniors will, someone will pop out of this.
Great discussions tonight, guys. Yeah. Anything else, Kev?
Nope. I think I've exhausted, at least for now, part one.
Well, we're calling again next week, man.
Yeah, we enjoy you to call back in, Kevin. And on behalf of Kevin from San Francisco and Barry Buss in L.A., this is Pete Ziebron on the Passing Shots on the Pro 10 Radio Network. Good night, and God bless.
Thanks, guys. Happy night. Thank you.
That's all, folks.